Hey, what's going on, sweaties all over the multiverse? You already know who it is. It's your favorite internet sweaty, and today I'm going to be doing another movie review, but this time it's going to be a little different. This time I'm going to be doing the Spider-Man Homecoming spoilers review. You asked for it in the comment section below, and this is exactly what you guys are getting, but I am not alone in this video because to talk about Spider-Man and get all sweaty and get all spoilerific, I've decided to bring on a guest, and so you guys have heard him on the channel before, and it's been a while since we did a collab together, so I decided to reach out to him since him and his lady actually saw Spider-Man Homecoming last weekend. So DeZ HD, what's up, man? Tell the people something about yourself.
Oh, what's up? First of all, I'm a I've been very into Spider-Man for a long time. I've been reading the comics for, man, I want to say all the way back into mid 1990s. I've been watching Spider-Man and reading the comics, seeing all the movies, and I also have a YouTube channel on fashion and social issues. If any of you guys are into that stuff, make sure you check me out at DeZ HD Social.
And that just shows you guys how young we are. We're not old like some of you might speculate that we are. We're not that old. We are young still. I mean, we're talking about 90s stuff here. I mean, we still watch some of the stuff from the 80s. So we're in the middle somewhere between there. All right, so hopping straight into it, man. So DeZ, basically, I'm going to throw it off to you first. Seeing as you're the guest on the channel, I just basically want to get your general thoughts on the movie as a whole. Do you think this was a good MCU/Sony film? Ultimately, what kind of scenes stood out to you, and just your general thoughts on the movie as a whole?
My general thoughts on the movie. Oh man. First of all, obviously, I think it was a good movie. Great. I don't know if I'll say it was great, but I mean, I really do like just about anything that's Spider-Man. I do prefer the college Spider-Man than I do the high school version of Spider-Man. I've always been that way. I never really liked the younger stuff, but for the direction that they went with this, I really did appreciate it because, you know, with a lot of the other Marvel movies, you know, they tend to be more serious, but with Spider-Man, they stuck to his true nature and they made it more like, you know, it was just lighthearted, you know, but it still had its action in there and its comedy. You know, I really, really enjoyed the movie. And yeah, so what did you think about it? What were your thoughts?
I really did enjoy the movie. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Actually, in some ways, I actually enjoyed it more than Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, and that's not taking anything away from Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, because I loved that film as well. But to me, this Spider-Man is my definitive Spider-Man. I said that in my non-spoilers review. I think that Tom Holland perfectly embodies the character of Peter Parker, especially this high school Peter Parker, how he acts and his mannerisms with his friends and everything, how he interacts with Tony Stark, and how ultimately he's like this young kid who basically wants to prove himself to Tony Stark. I liked the relationship between Tom Holland and Robert Downey Jr.'s character. I thought that was great. The character of Zendaya, they kept her a mystery the whole time, and I liked what they did with her character. And I liked the little nod that they had at the end where they called her MJ, and she said, "My friends call me MJ." And then everyone's like, "Oh, she's Mary Jane." It's like, no, her name is Michelle Jones. You know, this was just kind of like a wink and a nod.
Right.
I love Hot Aunt May, hashtag Hot Aunt May, Mr. Tomei as May Parker. I did like Tyne Dolly a little bit. You know, it was good to see him in there. Hannibal Burgess, it was good to see him in a comedic role. It was also good to see Gwyneth Paltrow make her appearance at the end. Jacob Batalon, I know a lot of people have been poo-pooing on him, saying that he's like this goofy sidekick that's stupid and that Spider-Man doesn't need him. I'm like, look, man, you guys do not get the relationship between Tom Holland's character and Jacob Batalon's character. You need to go back and rewatch that movie because he's basically like his ultimate wingman. Not only is he his best friend, who's also into geek culture and everything like Peter is,
right?
But also he's basically his guy in the chair, as he says. He's his best man, his number 2 guy, the one who's always there for Peter, who always has his back. And it's trying to give him this pep talk, even during the film when he sometimes doubts, can he do certain things? He's there to pick him up. And then when he gets a little over himself, he's also there to ground the character as well. And then of course Laura Harrier. I hate that they didn't do a little bit more with Liz's character, but at the same time, I'm so glad. I like the relationship that her and Tom Holland had as well. So just my general thoughts on the movie, I thought it was good. I thought they utilized the characters very well, for the most part at least. I thought the story was airtight. I didn't mind them changing up a few things, you know, and again, making it in a modern day setting. Overall, I think it's a great film.
Great film. You think it was great? I think it was all right. Well, more than all right. I still think it was pretty good. Good and great. It's definitely up there among the rest of the good MCU movies. And I think one of the scenes that stood out to me, I think one of my favorite scenes definitely had to be the whole fight scene on the ship. Like, I thought that was amazing, and how Iron Man had to come out and save him. And also, to touch on what you said, the relationship between Peter Parker and Tony Stark. Like, I just really, really enjoyed that, because in the comics, Spider-Man has always looked up to the Avengers. You know, then we all know that he eventually does help the Avengers out from time to time, but he still likes to just, you know, kind of handle his own thing on the side. Well, for the main part, but then he helps the Avengers out on the side, excuse me. But yeah, man, it was just really a lot that I liked about it. The one thing that I did want to see, that I keep on wanting to see in all of these different Marvel movies, is I want to see some of the Defenders make an appearance, but I don't think that they're gonna do that, because they're your
probably not.
Yeah, because they're your lower tier heroes. But it'll still be cool to kind of see some Easter eggs in there. But I guess for the Spider-Man movie, they probably already had enough going on having Iron Man in there, because a lot of people were saying that, oh, well, this is basically going to be another Iron Man movie, and it wasn't. So in your face, those people that were saying that.
Right, exactly. I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
And I also like that scene, and I like how we all thought that it was going to be a hollow suit, and then all of a sudden it's really Robert Downey Jr. in the suit. And he's like, oh, Mr. Stark. He's like, I didn't know that you were going to be here. I thought this was going to be a hologram again.
I enjoyed that.
So I also like that scene as well. One of the other standout scenes to me that I also liked was I like how we ultimately got to see Peter Parker act like a teenager. I love the beginning scenes where we're setting up everything, and he's sitting there in high school with Ned, and they're fawning over this girl and everything. I like seeing stuff like that. I like the relationship between him and the character of Ned. I also like the scene where they're in the gym, and he's just sitting there just pumping out. He's ripped at this point, and this is nothing to him, so he's just sitting there doing his sit-ups like it's nobody's business. And all of a sudden you hear Ned just scream out, Peter knows Spider-Man, and it's like, dude, I just told you. Okay, you know now, but you cannot tell people, and here you are just blurting this out. Now, I know a lot of people are like, why would he say that? And it's like, think of the mind of a 16-year-old. Let's say you just found out your best friend is a superhero that everybody likes to watch on the internet. You're not going to be wanting to tell or blurt that out just a little bit?
Oh, yeah, I would definitely be wanting to tell somebody. I don't know if I would. Well, I definitely wouldn't tell people that he was Spider-Man, but I definitely want to let them know that, hey, my friend knows him.
And another thing that I also like that I have felt that a lot of people haven't touched on, I like how this had consequences behind everything. What I've disliked about some of the MCU films and EU films as well is there are no consequences to certain actions, especially in the MCU. Let's just be honest, there's not that many consequences to your actions.
Okay, explain.
Well,
I want to hear this.
Except in Civil War, we saw a little bit of some actions. Basically, like every time Peter messes up, there is a consequence behind that. Oh, poison Kane. Case in point, when he's sitting there fighting the bank robbers and everything, he let the bank robbers get away. And there was a consequence behind that. He ultimately went to save somebody else, but there was a consequence behind him letting those weapons get away.
Right.
Another consequence, he ended up skipping out on the trip so he could be, save everyone and everything. he got in trouble for that, and there was a consequence behind that. The consequence was he had to sit in detention. He skipped detention because he had to go do something. There was a consequence behind that. I like how this was grounded in a high school sense, mind you, that if you're in high school and you make mistakes, you are going to get punished for it.
Yeah, it definitely, they definitely captured the entire vibe of having a teenager in high school and also trying to be a superhero at the same time. Like, I definitely think that's what it would be like in real life if something like that was to happen to someone. You know, because he's trying to juggle having a crush on this beautiful girl and being a superhero at the same time. A lot of us may have, especially at the one scene where they were at the hotel and they were having a little swimming get together. I think a lot of us would have failed and went to hang out with the cool girl and show off our superhuman body.
Oh, most definitely. I know I definitely would have.
Yeah.
And so there was also a consequence to that as well. So see, like, that's what I said. I like how there were like real life consequences to this movie. But one of the other standout scenes that I want to talk about, that a lot of people are going to talk about, is that scene where he has just, you know, had a little skirmish with the Vulture, and the Vulture has trapped him under that debris. Now, if you're a comic book sweaty like DeZ and myself, you know that that's an iconic scene where he's under the rubble, and that, you know, showcases just how strong and powerful his will is and how physically strong he is. He has all that debris on him, and he's just sitting there saying, "Come on, Spider-Man, come on, Spider-Man, come on, Spider-Man," pumping himself up, and he sits there and he lifts all that debris off of him.
Right. That was
now, and that's one of those oh no, you're good, man. That's just one of those iconic scenes from the comic book where he's sitting there and he's trapped in a warehouse and all this debris has fell on him. And the scene that I'm talking about is the one where I think they were inside of a sewer when it happened in the comic book. And he was trapped under a bunch of rubble, and he basically willed himself and used his physical strength, because not only does that show us how strong Peter Parker is as Spider-Man, but it also shows us his will to be Spider-Man and how he can will himself to overcome the impossible. Because I felt like that was one of the main sublines in here. He always wanted to prove himself, basically saying that, hey, look, I can do this. I can do this, you know, and he says that to himself multiple times, that I can do this. I can prove my worth as Spider-Man, as Peter Parker. I can prove that I can be worthy and can help out. And in that scene, and during the film, he even referenced that he's like, yeah, when his friend Ned tries to ground him, saying that, like, but you are a kid. He's like, yeah, a kid who can stop a 2-ton bus with his bare hands. That's one thing to say it. It's another thing for us to show it. And we actually got a scene of that in Civil War with the bus and everything. And that was a nice little callback that they did there. But that scene of him pushing the debris and the rubble off of him, I thought that was a really powerful scene. And one of the other standout scenes that I have before we move on to the spoilers and everything, of our negatives at least, is the scene at the end where he rescues the Vulture. Now, in typical comic book fashion, like with most Marvel films, they love to kill off their villains. They are very bad about killing off their villains, and their villains not getting a fair shake, because Kevin Feige has said that our movies are about our heroes. And I think the reason that Vulture ultimately lived is because Sony doesn't necessarily have a track record of completely killing off their characters. They'll at least let them get captured or taken into police custody so they can use them later on in life.
Right.
And I like how in this one, they didn't kill Vulture. Vulture actually got punished. He got sent to prison and everything. And then from what we saw in the mid-credit scene, he had a chance to turn in Spider-Man. But instead, he's just like, you know what? No, I don't know who his real identity is. He's like, no, I have no idea what you're talking about. And see, that was one of those moments where if they would have killed off Toombs' character of Michael Keaton, we wouldn't have gotten that scene. And on top of that, now he can come back in future movies and either maybe be like an anti-ally to Spider-Man, or just, you know, become another villain, because they've been setting up for the Sinister Six ever since they donned Amazing Spider-Man, the first one.
Right.
They've always wanted to do a Sinister Six movie. And now that they haven't killed him off, there's a possibility that Toombs could be a part of that Sinister Six. And I think there was another thing saying about that scene of how he again went and rescued his enemy. He didn't have to. He could have let him burn up and let him explode. But at the same time, not only was he thinking about, okay, this guy is just trying to protect his family. He's just trying to provide for his family. What would, Tony Stark and them do in this type of situation? Is it right for me to play life or death with these characters? Is it my right to be the judge, jury, and executioner? And he says, you know what? No, I'm going to capture him and I'm going to let him go into police custody, and then they'll see fit what to do with him. And I think that was a really powerful scene, just like the Bree scene, basically.
Right. I definitely enjoyed that too. At the end, where we had the Scorpion, who I noticed earlier in the ship scene that I told you was one of my standout scenes in the movie. I noticed that his character was there. I knew it was him when I seen the Scorpion tattoo on his neck. I'm like, yep, they're definitely gonna do some Sinister Six type stuff in the future, or at least they're gonna have Scorpion and maybe 2 or 3 other villains, because he's definitely an iconic villain with Spider-Man. Like, he's always been there. You see him in the comics, the cartoons. I'd always like to see him fight Scorpion and Rhino too.
Whenever I hear the word Rhino, I think of that Paul Giamatti cameo that just kind of helped ruin the Spider-Man, Amazing Spider-Man 2 even more.
Yeah, that was pretty bad. I thought he was going to end up being like, this other villain in the movie, and no, he was just there for maybe a couple of minutes.
Poor Paul Giamatti.
Yeah.
But okay, guys, now we're going to get into some of our negatives and everything. And I'll start off by saying that one of the negatives that I really had, and at the time when I did my review, I didn't have too many, but one of the things that I thought that was a real disappointment was the treatment of the villains in here. We know that Michael Keaton was our main villain. That's understood, and I thought they did a very good job of scoping out Adrian Toombs' character and everything, and how they gave him a backstory. They explained why he's doing what he's doing and why he's doing this for his family and why he came to this and the grudge that he has against Iron Man and everything for taking this company from him, this business that he was basically a part of for years. I like how they did that. But to me, I think that the whole thing with the Shocker thing was just a waste. I think they should have just had one Shocker instead of one Shocker being killed all of a sudden, and then he's like, now you're Shocker. And I would have been like, I don't want to be Shocker. I'm going to pick my own name and be like, look, you just killed Shocker. That was his name. He came up with the name Shocker. I would be like, bro, I want to come up with my own name. Maybe I want to call myself One Fist or something. I don't know. It's like, you're just like, now you're a Shocker. And it's like, I get what that scene was supposed to do. That scene was supposed to show, Michael Keaton is a bad dude, and he'll kill you, even his own men, if you cross the line with him or step against the bounds. And I like that scene, but I still think that maybe they should have just had one Shocker. And then another villain that I felt like they kind of completely wasted was the Tinkerer.
Oh,
a lot of people didn't even notice that the Tinkerer was in there.
Right.
The guy who was working on all the tech stuff, that's the Tinkerer. Yeah. They could have at least gave, maybe in a passing conversation or something, been like, man, I'm gonna start calling you the Tinkerer, man. You're working on all this stuff for us, man, and everything. A lot of people are like, the Tinkerer, they said the Tinkerer was supposed to be in the movie. He was in the movie. Same thing with Scorpion. A lot of people didn't pay attention to that Scorpion tattoo,
right.
So they missed that Scorpion was in the movie.
Well, I think that if you know your Marvel, you would have known that there was the Tinkerer, because I didn't even realize that was him until I read online that he was in there. I'm like, I thought I was this big Spider-Man guy, and I didn't even realize the Tinkerer was in there. But I can tell you this, with the Shocker being in the movie, also in the comics, another guy takes up Shocker's mantle. That's what I read. So that was kind of a nod to that. So that other guy who didn't want to call himself Shocker, he did that. That is something that actually happened in the comics, and I wasn't even aware of that until after I seen the movie. So
yeah, I feel you, man, and I want to reiterate this to the audience. Look, I'm not saying that I didn't like the character of Bo Bryce. I think it's Bryce's character. I liked him as the Shocker. Don't get me wrong. I thought he was real great as the Shocker and everything. But to me, I just felt like you kind of wasted him a little bit. Why not just make him the Shocker from the get-go? And you can have him basically Jackson Bryce, that's the guy's name. You can have Jackson Bryce be the Shocker from the get-go, and then you can show that in between the movie that him and Michael Keaton maybe don't get along. And then you could have let the other guy, Herman Schultz, you could have let his character been somebody else, basically. Like, he could have been another little ancillary villain that nobody's heard of, or just like some lackey that doesn't even really have any significance, and then let Michael Keaton kill him off.
Right.
I felt like it just diminished the value of the Shocker name by just saying he's dead. Okay, you're Shocker now. And I get that that's probably what they did. They probably called back to the comic book, because there have been people who have taken up the mantle of Shocker besides the first Shocker that we originally got. But man, what are any negatives that you have?
Well, it goes right back to the Shocker thing. I would have liked to see Shocker as a decent villain. I would have liked to see towards the ending of the movie, maybe Spider-Man fights Shocker, and then later on, he goes on to fight the Vulture, because the Shocker is another one of those iconic villains that we were talking about. And he's a member of the Sinister Six. So kind of, if you really kind of think about it, you had, a couple of members of the Sinister Six there. We had the Vulture, Shocker, and Scorpion. So that's 3 out of the 6 already. So that's pretty cool. So I guess we only need about 3 more if they really want to go that route. So it's pretty cool. I didn't think about that up until now.
Right, I got you. And I mean, we did get to see him fight the Shocker a little bit.
Right.
Towards the very end of the film, we got to see that iconic scene of him punching him through against the bus and everything, where he has lost his suit that Tony Stark gave him, and he's basically using his makeshift suit that he basically made for himself that we saw in Civil War. So at least we did get a little bit of a fight, but we knew this was the warm-up fight to the big bad ultimately, because this is what most comic book movies do. They let you fight the fodder, and then you move up to the big guy who's like the one in control of everything.
Yeah. I guess I just wanted to see a bigger fight. I wanted 2 big fights, because it was so good, really. But I guess, you can't make the movie too long. How long was the movie? Was it about 2 hours?
Let me see. I think the movie, it was about 2 hours. It was about 2 hours and like some odd minutes.
All right, I wouldn't have minded about 7 to 8 more minutes of Spider-Man versus Shocker with a little bit of more, character development with the Shocker. I wouldn't have minded that, but I mean, those are my gripes. They're not that. It's not too much to really pick about, but those are my gripes. That, and I always prefer the college version of Peter Parker. I don't know why, I just do, but yeah.
And now that I've had time to think about it, I think I have one more gripe. But again, this is like a little nitpick gripe. The character of Laura Harrier of Training Liz, I kind of hate that they made her Peter Parker's love interest, because they went nowhere with that love interest. I get that in high school that happens a lot. You're like, oh my God, I have the opportunity to be with my crush, and then sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. I get that, and I get that they're trying to build to possibly Michelle being his love interest, because those characters are completely opposite, and in a sense that works.
Right.
But I felt like, why tease us? Like, even in the trailer, we saw that infamous scene with them kissing at the dance. That scene was nowhere to be found in the movie. And if they would have put that in the movie, I would have been like, why? This relationship has not warranted a kiss, because basically he's flaked and bailed on her, and every time they've done something, she's flaked and bailed. So I don't think he necessarily deserves a kiss.
That's classic Peter Parker. It's classic Peter Parker all the way back to the 90s Spider-Man with Mary Jane. He always had to end up standing her up, because there was something more serious going down, and she just kind of figures out that, well, this guy doesn't have that much time for me, so she goes on to date other people. But let me ask you a question though. Like, do you think that what's the character's name? Is Michelle, they call her MJ,
Michelle Jones.
I think that she may possibly end up being Mary Jane, like maybe in Spider-Man 3 she may end up being Mary Jane, because she'll end up like becoming an actress or a model, and how people, a lot of celebrities have changed their name, and then she'll end up calling herself Mary Jane. but that's something that could happen. Or maybe this is just a nod to Mary Jane by her calling herself, by saying that she calls herself MJ, or her friends call her MJ. So either way, I think it's cool if they just make her, Michelle Jones and not Mary Jane. Because I think the reason they would do that, because there was a lot of controversy. They're like, oh, well, Mary Jane is usually a white lady with red hair, which I don't have any problem with that. But I think that they just wanted to kind of separate the characters.
Because we've shown in the past, Marvel has shown that they don't mind switching up character diversities. I mean, remember the controversy about the Ancient One. Not only was she a white lady played by Tilda Swinton, but the fact that she was a woman instead of a Chinese man, everyone was up and roar about it. And then we ended up loving Tilda Swinton's portrayal of the Ancient One. So it's not like Marvel is not used to changing up the appearances or changing up the ethnicity of different characters or the race of different characters.
Right.
And I actually like that. Now, going to your question of do you think she'll end up become MJ or Mary Jane, I honestly don't think they're gonna go that route.
Okay.
I like how they came up with this new character of Michelle Jones, but her friends obviously call her MJ. Obviously, that's a nod to the fans and everything. I don't think they'll do Mary Jane because we've already seen Mary Jane.
Right.
We've already seen someone portray her. Same thing with Gwen Stacy. I don't think we're ever gonna go to Gwen Stacy again. I like how they've created this new character. And as far as her maybe becoming a model or something, from what we've learned about her, she doesn't seem like the type that wants to be in the modeling. She seems more like this gothic grunge type character who is very smart but doesn't show it outright, and she seems like she's against conventionalism and everything, and I don't think she would necessarily be for a modeling, because a lot of the books that she's reading are about protesting things. And because she's like, one of the scenes that I remember her saying to like one of the other teachers is like, yeah, well, I'm gonna go protest in front of the White House or whatever. And it's like, see, I don't think a character who's conventional like that would necessarily want to go to the standards of becoming a model. So no, I don't think they're ever gonna turn her into Mary Jane. They may, if they want to take some of her character personalities down the road and give them to Michelle, I'd be cool with that, but I don't want to see another Mary Jane, and I don't think they're going to go that route, because then you're going to have to make the comparison between who was a better Mary Jane, Kirsten Dunst or Zendaya, and I don't think they want to give themselves that headache.
That's pretty good. I appreciate that. That's a nice analysis that you made. I'm easily swayed. I think I agree with that. All right.
But man, did you have any more negatives or anything else that you wanted to touch on?
Any more negatives? Man, not really. That's it. Out of 10, 1 out of 10 stars, I definitely have to give this about a 7 or 8, only because of my my little gripes with it. But it's good. It's pretty close to great. Like it's there. You can't. I couldn't imagine too many different things they could have done to make that movie better. For what they wanted it to be, I think that they hit the nail on the head. Like it's a good movie, hands down.
Right, I agree with you. In terms of my score, originally I gave it, in my non-spoiler review, I gave it a 10 out of a 10. But again, now that I've had time to let the hype die down and everything, I've had time to process it, I think I'm actually going to give the movie slightly, just a little bit. It'll still be really high. It'll be a 9.5 out of a 10. I still love what they did with the character. I still say that this is my definitive Spider-Man, because again, I thought that Tom Holland was able to portray the character of Peter Parker, and I can't wait to see the character grow with Tom Holland as we get these series of films and as he's used in these other Avengers films. I can't wait to see where the character goes from here, because the character can only grow with the actor, and that's what I like and why they didn't cast an older actor. And one of the other things I want to touch on, with just defending some of the characters, I know a lot of people have also been defending Flash, saying that why did they make Flash like a part of his group and everything. I think that I don't mind that Flash is not a jock in particular. I don't mind him being smart, but not as smart as Peter Parker. That's fine with me, because the whole jock thing is played out. We have seen that so many times in all the other Spider-Man films. We've seen that in other superhero films. I'm glad that we're just having a typical guy who is still a bully, but he's a smart bully. He's not as smart as some of the other characters, but he's still rightfully smart.
Right.
And I like that they showcased that. Again, I'll defend Ned to the day that I go to my grave. I thought Ned was a great character, and I thought he was a great pick to have in this film as Peter Parker's best friend. Again, he is the guy in the chair. He's the guy who's always going to have his back. And you saw that they had a great dynamic together when he's in his getup as Spider-Man and when they're just hanging around the high school. They have a really great rapport and back and forth with each other. And that's something that you can't really fake on screen. So I think that Tom Holland and Jacob Batalon had a really great relationship, and I look forward to seeing where that goes. Same thing with him and Zendaya's character. I love how she was a good foil to him and called him a lot on some of his BS. When he tried to like BS and make up some kind of excuse, she was there to call him on it. I like that. I like how she was his ball buster. Again, Michael Keaton as Adrian Toomes. Fantastic. I can't wait to see him reprise the role. Hopefully we'll see him back again in future incarnations. And one of the other characters two of the other characters I should say that I felt like we haven't talked about was Jon Favreau as Happy Hogan. A lot of people saw him as like being kind of mean and kind of being a dick to Spider-Man in a sense, saying that, you know, he was just ignoring his calls and everything. You got to take this from a context of he has a lot of things going on. The last thing he wants to do is keep talking to Peter Parker about, I stopped someone from robbing a lady in the alley, or I stopped this guy from robbing a bank or something like that. That's little small stuff. Now, when it's grand scale stuff like those weapons, that's fine. That's when you do need to contact him. Same thing with Tony Stark. I like the way that they use him in the film as well. And one of the other complaints that I have seen on the internet that I also defend is a lot of people have complained that Tom Holland's Peter Parker was too needy, that he was kind of whiny in a sense. A lot of people basically feel that he was begging and begging and begging throughout the film and constantly calling and calling, being like, I want to be an Avenger, I want to be an Avenger. You got to think again from the mindset of a teenager. He just went on this grand scale adventure with them and helped the quote unquote Avengers take down the rogues. And he had fun. You saw that in the beginning of the movie when he was sitting there documenting what he was doing. He just wanted to do that again. He wanted to become useful to them. He wanted to make sure that he was doing his fair shake while Captain America's off doing his thing, or while Iron Man is off doing his thing. He just wants to make sure he's doing his thing. And I think that's... Oh, no, you can go ahead, man.
I was just going to say, that's classic Peter Parker. That's how he is even in the recent cartoon that it just came out, you know, and in the Spider-Man comics, you know, that's covering the younger version of Spider-Man. You know, he really, really does look up to Captain America and Iron Man. Like, those are the heroes that he inspires to be. So they, you know, they stayed pretty close to the character. Like, those people who are complaining about him being that way, they obviously aren't Spider-Man fans, or they aren't that much Spider-Man fans, because everybody knows that. That's general.
Right, I get you. And, you know, like I said, I don't think he was necessarily whining. I just think he was just wanting to prove himself ultimately. Like, every superhero wants recognition in some way and wants to be remembered. And that's why I think at that end scene where they offer him their position to be an Avenger, he got a new suit. He could walk right out there and be like, yep, my name is Tom Holland, a.k.a. Spider-Man. What's up, you guys? You know, this is me, yee. He decides to go against that. He's like, you know what? I'm good. He's like, I think I'm going to be better as a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man that you guys can call on whenever you need me. And I'm like that he turned it down, because I'm not saying that I don't think he's earned it. I definitely think he has earned it. But I'm glad that he turned it down. And then one of the other characters that I thought was a little hidden gem in this movie was Donald Glover. As small as he was in this movie, they really planted some seeds here for Miles Morales being a part of the MCU, because he's playing Aaron Davis, and he's the uncle of Miles Morales, for you guys who don't know. And he even mentions him and says that, I don't want these guns in the neighborhood. I have a nephew. And it's like, oh, what's his nephew? Miles Morales. He never said it, but it's like it's implied. So hopefully at some point we'll get to see Miles Morales on screen as well.
That'd be pretty cool. But you know what kind of puts it in, what kind of like gets my attention is, are they gonna sometime in the future kill off Spider-Man, the original Spider-Man, Peter Parker, like they do in the comics, in order for Miles Morales to become Spider-Man? Well, he really doesn't have to die for that to happen, but he didn't really become Spider-Man, to my knowledge, until Peter Parker had passed. So that's kind of interesting. Like, if they do present him for him to later become Spider-Man, then I just wonder how they're going to go about doing it. Are they really going to have two Spider-Men or what? Like, that's going to be interesting. Or I was even thinking, what if he gets killed off in the Infinity War? So I want to see what happens. I'm kind of interested.
And the only reason I would say he wouldn't get killed in Infinity War is because they've confirmed that Spider-Man 2, Homecoming 2, whatever the sequel is going to be called, it's going to pick up right after that movie. It's going to basically lead us into Phase 4, basically, when it comes out.
Oh, interesting.
And so I would say maybe if they wanted to, maybe Miles Morales could be Spider-Man on Earth while Peter Parker's all fighting Thanos in space, for all we know. This could also play into the Tom Hardy-led Venom movie. Maybe if they do want to go the Miles Morales route, and he takes up the mantle of Spider-Man, he doesn't necessarily have to be bitten by the spider right away. I mean, you can still have the spider bite him at some point, but I can see them having two Spider-Man as long as they use them effectively. But no, I think for right now, Kevin Feige and Amy Pascal and everyone's just going to stick with just Peter Parker.
I'm glad that you cleared that up for me. One other question. Do you think, like, which comes first? Infinity War or Spider-Man Homecoming 2? Like, which one do we get first?
Okay, we're actually going to get Infinity War first.
Okay.
This is basically the way that the landscape is set up. Give me a second here, and I'll get to the movie slate. Okay, so this is the movie slate that we have set. Spider-Man has came out. Next, we get Thor Ragnarok, followed by Black Panther. Then we get Avengers Infinity War. Then we get Ant-Man and the Wasp. Then we get our Venom movie, which has apparently been confirmed. It's going to be in the MCU, but not probably in the main MCU. Then we get Captain Marvel. Then we have the untitled Avengers sequel film to Infinity War. Then we have the untitled Spider-Man Homecoming sequel.
Oh.
And that basically is supposed to lead us into Phase 4, basically.
Okay, interesting. Man, that is pretty freaking cool. And wait a minute, this is news to me. You just said that Venom is going to be part of the MCU, because I thought that Sony was just going to be doing that, which was weird to me, and I probably won't ever even see it. Well, I would see it, but I'd be kind of sour about it.
Basically, from the comments that Kevin Feige and Amy Pascal have made, from the way I'm interpreting it, and the way that some of the people that I follow on social media are interpreting this as, that he'll be Venom in the MCU, but he won't be like hanging out with Captain America or Iron Man, but that Tom Holland's Spider-Man, who is in the MCU, can still be in the film, and he will ultimately be going against Spider-Man.
Right. Okay, that makes sense. I'm cool with that. I'm fine with that if they go that route. I think that about wraps it up for us, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah, most definitely, man. But, guys, what ultimately matters is what you think and not what we sweaties think on this discussion. So post your thoughts down in the comment section below. Go spoiler heavy. This is a spoilers review after all. Thank you, as always, for checking out the video, man. DeZ, tell the people where they can find you at, man, on all the social media platforms.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me on, first of all. And you guys can find me at youtube.com/DeZ HD Social, where I make videos on fashion and social issues. So I will really appreciate it if you guys just kind of checked me out.
All right, man, and I'll make sure I definitely have your information plugged in the description below. As always, guys, you can find me on all the social media platforms at official MS21. Yes, it has been changed from at I am Testify. I no longer am at I am Testify. It is now official MS21 on all the social media platforms. Thank you guys, as always, for tuning into this video. And as I always say, remember to become a savage, stay a savage, and peace out, y'all.